steadily it rises. Public preference for Lincoln Continental as the symbol for today's luxury motoring.
Hey, it's Jason ODB, the Lincoln Addict, and we're going to jump into part 4 of this series. You can see here the rendering for my 64 Lincoln Continental Smuggler's Blues, which you can tap on the hashtag if you're into that via social media, typically on Instagram, Project Smuggler's Blues all together. Of course, no hyphen for the hashtag, and you can see more, including pretty much the progress up until now for a lot of what we've done to this car in the last 5 years. This video series, part 4, I'm going to cover routine maintenance, so some things that you want to keep in mind, whether you're bagging a Lincoln or a truck or any other classic car or new school car, what else you can do. So thinking ahead a little bit, alternative ways to save, which I think is key. I'll kind of do my closing thoughts, and then I'm picking up my car tomorrow, Friday, right before Christmas, and I'm really thankful to my friend getting it done, but I'm going to show you some sneak peek photos that he actually just posted, so we'll take a look at that. Please, if you haven't, consider subscribing. It's free. I do a free podcast as well. Some of the recent episodes are here on YouTube. You can also go to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and download that app, whether you're on Android or iPhone, and you can subscribe to Lincoln Addict Podcast. So routine maintenance, right? So this is the tail end, probably the last video that I'll do in this series, but I'm telling you, routine maintenance is a must. You need to check things out yourself at certain points in your ownership of the vehicle once it's been bagged, or if you've got a local shop or friend maybe that has a shop, have them do it every so often. I'll be doing this on my car several times a year, possibly even more than this, but you basically just want to put the car on a lift if you can, if you have access to one, or simply jack it up. I always recommend, of course, using jack stands and just check things out. I'm a big list person, so I like to make lists in my Notes app or Evernote. And what I would suggest that you do is make a list of what did you check the first time? What are things that you want to check the next round, or something you didn't think about? Examples here would be check the bolts for all the suspension. If you've got a wrench or a socket that you can kind of go and just check everything. Obviously, you're going to have different sizes for each item, but your 4-link in the back and things like that, you just want to kind of give it a visual, check it, make sure it looks good. Of course, also do a visual on the airbags. Make sure nothing's rubbing. Of course, a lot of that has to do with the install, but trust me, you want to do these type of things. Check the front end bolts, including the tapered ball joints. So DVS, I talked about this earlier in the series. They sell these awesome tapered ball joints. Any solid installer is going to know that they got to use, as I said in the last episode, a little bit of Loctite here and there. These guys here, no difference. You would want to go ahead and use Loctite on these, but you want to go back and check, have your Allen wrenches out and just kind of make sure everything is snug and tight, and or torque to spec, whatever you torqued it to, and those type of things. When I dropped the car off at Jimmy's about 2 weeks ago, he mentioned he and I always have good conversation, especially when we're face to face, and he and I were talking about folks that have had challenges breaking down and things like that. I think it's happened to all of us, whether it's a mechanical issue on a car, but when you think of air suspension, Jimmy reinforced this. Again, he's been in business over 20 years on his own. He's been doing this kind of stuff 25 plus years, though, hydraulics, air suspension, things like that. If something doesn't seem right when you're driving the vehicle, be sure to check it out. And that's in caps. You don't want to just keep driving with the mindset of, it'll just go away. You know what I mean? Seriously, check it out. Again, air suspension is very, very reliable. But, again, routine maintenance is so key. Checking things. I didn't talk about it really in this series, but, even having some soapy water, checking your fittings every so often. Typically you can drive around on air suspension. You're going to be hitting some switches here and there, and you're not even going to notice leaks. But, go back and, check for some leaks if you want to get rid of any leaks that you may have. Just do the routine maintenance. Again, it's going to go a long way. Now, what else can you do? So I always try to think ahead if I'm doing things. When I had my 95 Suburban, if I was going to pull the interior out, it's a lot of work. What else could I have done? And I always suggest, if you're pulling your interior, to run maybe the AccuAir controller wire up, maybe under the carpet, under the jute, to the front seat. Maybe you're picking up an ignition source, which I think Tim, which is Jimmy's part-time employee, had to do, of course, on the 64. That ties into the AccuAir. You may as well think ahead on what else can be done while these things are apart. Now, I had a pretty big list for these guys, and I wasn't expecting them to pull the full carpet and jute and interior and do all that stuff. I actually wanted to kind of do that stuff if I could, but these are some things to keep in mind. When I get the car back, there's going to be a day where I'll pull the front seat again. Of course, the rear seat comes out pretty easy, but I like to vacuum under the carpet. Okay. The carpet in my car really needs to be replaced in the 64. So I'm going to maybe think ahead and go, hey, to Jim Wallace, get a carpet kit for it. Then when I have the carpet kit, I might pull the carpet kit, vacuum the floorboards, paint some POR 15, which stands for paint over rust. Even if there's no rust, it's a good sealant. There's similar products out there, Rust-Oleum type paint. I would even contemplate laying down some sound deadening materials such as Dynamat, right? So Dynamat is that overarching main brand that many of us think of, but there's, of course, a lot of different product on the market. This, of course, if you have the time and budget for those added expenses. If you have an unlimited budget or you're having a local shop airbag the car for you, then ask, hey, ask them if they would do these type of smaller tasks, or ask, do you recommend us doing anything else while this car is blown apart? Some shops might say, hey, sure. Other shops may go, hey, look, we're very limited scope. We just want to blow this thing apart, get it bagged, and get it back to you. It really depends on who you're taking it to. But again, even if you get the car back, you can go and do some of these things if that's something that you want to do. Going backwards here. So alternative ways to save, right? So there's always going to be the discussion of, do I need to have all this stuff, Jason ODB, that you've talked about in this video series? And the answer is no. You can do things, as I said earlier in the series, to save money if you do, or electric valves, or you do manual valves and things like that. That, of course, is your options. But again, the first bullet point here, you can go with a manual valve setup. Again, in the first bullet point here, you can go with a manual valve setup versus AccuAir. So I love AccuAir products. They have partnered with us for my truck podcast. I love what they put out. But you can always upgrade the air management down the road. Again, I said early in this series, being around mini trucks, in the beginning, we had 1/4-inch lines and those manual paddle valves, if you will. That stuff is still reliable. But let's say you're trying to save a little bit of dough. Down the road, get the car bagged, have that real good shop in your area, or get your friends together, as I said, bag the car, and then down the road, you can always come back and add the AccuAir. You can even then level up and add the E-level, as I mentioned earlier, and that's, of course, if you want that. You don't have to have all that stuff. Tony Boss Boland's been driving the Red Sled, the 65, for 5 years bagged. 1/4-inch lines, a couple Viair compressors. That's it. That's all you need. Have a local shop bag the front of your car on the stock control arms and buy a Devious Customs rear kit. So I showed you guys earlier in the series that you can buy just the rear kit, or you can buy just what you need. Now, these cars can be, of course, airbagged on the stock lower control arms, upper and lowers. That's what the guys did for, the late 90s and in the 2000s before there was really any product on the market. You can even buy new ball joints. So, obviously if you go out and you're starting to get, your factory ball joints and new bushings and things like that, a lot of it, to me, with the sub-bullet point here, is my thought is, if you can save the money, or if you have the money, just do it all at once. But just keep in mind, you do have those options. So you don't have to have every bell and whistle to lay your car out. And any of these Lincoln guys will kind of tell you that. I mean, you could bag your car at home and make a rear kit if you want, but I've seen some homemade kits and they don't really look they don't often look really up to par. But again, it just depends on your fabrication skills. It's not something I would do for my car because I don't have those skills. Have your friends that are more than capable of doing this type of stuff, including welding. Plan a weekend where you can tackle everything with your friends. Hell, if your friends have a lift, dude, more the merrier, right? That becomes your best friend, right? Okay, in closing, I appreciate you guys watching. We still got one more slide here in just a minute. Hopefully you found something I said either entertaining or enlightening. I'm not a professional when it comes to this stuff. I've been around it a long time. I'm not a fabricator. I do believe, based upon my research, I can at least provide informative info to you, the viewer or enthusiast, to make a solid, educated decision on what you may want to do with your ride. Now, again, I may not be the guy doing the work in terms of the install, but I can definitely steer you towards the best products and options. And oftentimes people will ask me, well, what do you recommend? I try not to sway people's opinion. I want you to go out and look at the different products and for you to make the best decision for your install. But as I said in this video series, go and talk to people that have these cars that are bagged if that's something that you want. What kit do you have? Now, my one piece of advice would be this. I did not get my kit for free. You have to keep in mind, you have to ask people sometimes, did you get a hookup? Did you get a deal? And when people get stuff for free, they're often going to say, yeah, go ahead and go buy such and such kit because they feel like, hey, they got it for free. They need to tell you what to get. I don't want to do that. I want to say, hey, this is what I have. I've had great success with it. I've been to Jeff's shop. I see the quality in the parts for the air suspension. That's why I'm recommending it. Those are the reasons. Now, here's a sneak peek of Smuggler's Blues. So I showed a sneak peek earlier in this series. Jimmy, just in the last 30 minutes, posted these photos. So let's take a look here. Now, Jimmy's Rod and Customs altogether, you can see on Instagram. You can go over here and you can follow Jimmy if you'd like. If we click on, obviously, typically you're going to be on your phone. But basically, he posted, this is the photo. He took this photo yesterday and sent it to me. He posted this 39 minutes ago from the time of this recording. And this is the car laid out, 17-inch Colorado Custom wheels, which I kind of forgot to talk about. Shout out to Colorado Custom Wheels. I love Michael and team. I visited there back in September. They're actually in Anaheim, California. But these are 17-inch Colorado Custom wheels with Diamondback white wall tires, right? If you look at Mob Steel and Detroit Steel, they often run Diamondback tires. They actually referred me to Diamondback years ago when I was looking at buying some Detroit Steel Co. wheels. But this is the 64 laid out in the DVS kit. Tucking a little bit of tire in the front. You got a 17-inch wheel, of course, front and back, with that little bit of meat on the tire, so to speak. Of course, you do see the center caps are missing. He didn't put the center caps on for this photo. He might not want to mess with it. I don't know, but they are, I think they've improved the way Colorado has. They've enhanced how the center caps go on. So I think I've got the wheel where you have to use a rubber mallet to kind of put them on. So I'll mess with that probably once I get the car home. Now, that's not it. If you take a look here, and this is kind of the reveal that I've been wanting to give you guys, this is the trunk setup, and I really, really, really dig it. What Jimmy ended up doing is, again, he used 1, 2. So these two mounts are from Universal Air. He made this, I'll call it a big L bracket, it appears, where it goes down, and there's going to be a bend, I'm assuming, on the bottom. So he has the 2 Vire 485C compressors mounted. You saw this in the sneak peek prior. You've got the ECU Plus, right, which allows for you to utilize your phone if that's what you want to do. And then this is the VU4. This is, of course, mounted also to this L bracket that he made. These are stainless steel hard lines. So you're going to have your 4 ports, and each of those ports are going to go out to the 4 airbags. That's key because when you hit the switch, it's releasing the valve to fill the bag, okay? Now, of course, when you let air out of the system, the air is coming out, and, it's airing out of this big valve, and that's what allows the car to go lower, if you will. So I know you might be looking at this, and I was kind of curious how he was going to do a few things. Of course, this tank has multiple ports, so you have the compressors fill the tank right here. And you've got your 4 airlines going out to your bag. So you're like, okay, well, you have 4, 2 on each side, and then you have these guys here. Where are they coming from? So this line here. So we know the tank is coming over here, and we know this is coming back from this bulkhead fitting that's going to allow for there to be a fitting on each side of the metal, and that's coming back to the AccuAir VU4. So what exactly is that? Well, if we take a look over here, what I love that Jimmy did is, one, I wanted to run the steel braided lines. So again, I talked about you can run nylon, but this is all steel braided underneath here. There are some clips kind of holding it all up, and then what they did is just kind of wire tied to kind of keep these together. But what you're seeing here is, instead of putting the water traps and kind of making the whole setup bulky and unsightly, they put the water traps so they're actually outside the car. So if you look back here, basically the tank. So what's going to happen is the wire is going to fill the tank. When the air, before it comes back into the valve, the air is going to go out here. It's going to go through the water trap, and then it's going to come back in after it comes out of the water trap. So when it comes back in, now it's going to be over on going into the VU4, and that's what's going to help keep the moisture out of that valve, which I kind of talked about, I think, in part 3. So if you just take a look at it for a minute, again, you got some stainless steel hard line here, and you have steel braided line underneath. Again, you don't have to do all this stuff. I've been around this air suspension stuff a while, and I'm kind of OCD when it comes to it. I really wanted a nice, clean trunk setup, and I feel like that's what we have here, kind of an over-the-top deal. Underneath, again, you see the water trap. All of the exhaust was redone. He custom made everything, which is fantastic. I still haven't seen all this in person, but you see the Devious kit, something that I didn't get a chance to talk about because I didn't do an unboxing. You've got the Devious D that's lasered into these axle brackets here. You have your 4-link. You have your above cross member where you have your upper bars here. And then, of course, you really can't see, but you have the shocks. So this upper bar up here, that's where the shocks go to. You've got your single bellow, kind of is what I call it, single bellow bag. And there's a few other things you can't really see with the AccuAir, the E level, but we'll talk more about that in a future video. We'll jump back over here. So in closing, thank you guys so much for watching this series, Project Smuggler's Blues. I will have more content. This was kind of a limited series just to talk about the scope of the air suspension and things like that. But again, I want to thank Colorado Custom Wheels. These wheels here that were rendered by my friend Thor. So Instagram rendered by Thor. He drew this for me back 3-4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. This, of course, features the Colorado Custom Wheels. And I want to thank Michael and team for everything they do there. And I love the setup. So more to come on this. Thank you guys. Merry Christmas, and appreciate all the support. Let's have a good time as we move into 2023. We're going to have a lot more content here on Lincoln Addict channel. Take care, everyone. Peace.